Hello everyone, welcome to the new series of Drishti IAS. I am Ritu and today we are going to discuss very important topic of economy and GS3, which is inflation. And today's topic is about, is inflation lowering in this country or not? And why we have chosen this topic? Because you already know that world is war ridden and pandemic ridden. In this situation, our economic factor is not just influenced by the internal factors, it is also influenced by the external factors. So this thing is very important to discuss, that how inflation rises and how it decreases and how it is impacting our economy. So moving to the points of discussion part. So first of all, we are going to discuss the news, and then we are going to discuss a brief about inflation, and then we'll have a inflation related data in this section, and then we are going to discuss policy impacts due to inflation, and then practice question for prelims and mains. So moving to the news part. So CPI has released a data which shows that retail inflation of this country has lowered by 4.87%, which is 4 or 5 months low, which is a very good sign, and it shows that economy is progressive in a positive way. So this thing we are going to discuss in today's lecture. So moving to the inflation part. So what will have a brief introduction of inflation. So what is the tendency of the inflation? So inflation is a loss of purchasing power by any consumer. So in your prelims examination, when there will be any statement related to inflation, then your answer must be that it is a loss of purchasing power by any consumer. And what it does, that there are two kinds of inflationary measure in this country. The first is the CPI and the second is the WPI. So CPI is a consumer price index and WPI is a wholesale price index. And today's lecture is about CPI. So what CPI entails? So CPI entails a measure of changes in the price level of basket products and households which is used by daily. So what happens that, whatever the products used by daily households, so we take sample from that households which is routinely used, and that samples has been used to collect the data. So this is a measure of CPI. So moving ahead, moving to the next slide is about the inflation internals. So this slide talks about the different data which we have seen changes. So this thing talk about the changes in index October 2023 versus September 2023. So this is slightly different from 1 month. So this data is about that how much changes we have done. So in front of whole CPI, we have 0.7% of the positive trend, and in case of the food we have 1.1%, cereals 0.8%, meat, fish, oil, fats. So what we can see here that, whatever the products we have taken for the samples, they are the daily household products and they are daily used by any ordinary household. So in the case of CPI, we take such kind of the data and how it affects the consumer market and how it affects the daily inflationary measures. So we have taken such kind of the data and it is showing very positive sign, except only few things just like oil and fats. Because of the Russia-Ukraine war, we can see there is a lots of crisis going in our country. So because of that, in few cases we can see there is a negative signs, but in most of the cases there is a positive trend in case of the inflation, and inflation is lowering in this country. So moving ahead, next slide is about that what will have a policy impact of RBI. So in December, RBI is going to conduct its monetary policy meeting. In that meeting, it is very expected that RBI is going to not change its stance. So we already had discussed various about RBI stance in various videos. So in this video, what will happen when there is inflation is lowering in the country? So RBI is going to take hawkish tone or hawkish pause. So what is this hawkish tone? So what happened that in hawkish tone, the interest rate may be rise, and when it comes to the dovish pose, the interest rate low. And here there is a ease of quantitative measures, and here there is a tightening of the quantitative measures. So this is the difference between hawkish and dovish. So maybe slightly RBI will take the hawkish tone, and it is highly expected that RBI is not going to change its stance and there will be the pause in the RBI monetary policy. And current repo rate is 6.50. So maybe in December also they will have, and they will retain this kind of the data. And what this retainment called? So this is called as withdrawal of the accommodation. So this is brief about policy impacts and how this inflationary measure will impact the RBI's policy, and why RBI is taking such policy, because it does not want inflationary burden on the consumer, and it wants to retain its economy in a very good shape, because so many world war is going around in and around the country and in and around the world also. So in this situation, the RBI is taking wise decision in order to maintain our economy. So that's why it is going to take two kind of the stance. The first is the withdrawal of accommodation and second is the hawkish tone. So this is the thing. And what is this withdrawal of accommodation? So what happened that in this there is a curbing of money supply in the economy. So if there will be the curbing of money supply in the economy, the inflationary measures will be tightened up. So that's why this is called as a hawkish tone. So moving to the next slide. Next slide is about the question. Consider the following statement regarding the measurement of the rate of inflation. So we already had discussed about CPI. So the rate of inflation is measured on the basis of wholesale price index and the consumer price index. So you already know that how it has been measured in, especially in India. A price index is measure of the average level of the prices. Price index shows the exact price rise or fall of a single good, and you have to very carefully deal with all the options, and here they are asking that which of the statements are correct. So your options are 1 only, 1 and 2 only, 2 and 3 only, 1 and 3 only. So you have to answer accordingly. Moving to the next slide. Next slide is a mains question. Discuss the various types of inflation in India. How does inflation affect the growth and development prospect of India? Suggest some policy measures to achieve price stability and low inflation in India. So we have a different kind of inflation. So the first is demand pull, cost pull, and then imported, and then structural. So what happened in demand pull, that the demand of the any product and the supply of the any product rises, so the both rises, so that's why this is a demand pull inflation. The cost is also that if the prices of few products rises, so this is called as cost pull inflation. Similarly the import, so when the imported products, their prices rises, so this is called as imported pull inflation. Coming to the structural, so when there is an inefficiency in the economic structure or any economic measures, so that is called the structural inflation. So these are the four types of inflation we have. And then coming to that, what kind of measures and what kind of things you can adopt to maintain the price stability in an economy, then you have to look for the fiscal policy, monetary policy, so the government of any country should focus on these two things, that how monetary policy and how any central banks take any kind of the stands with the coming and with the changing circumstances of any economy, and also the fiscal policy, that how much they are taxing and how much they are particularly imposing tax on a particular kind of the population, and what are the then coming to the positive and negative impacts of inflation we have. So when the inflation is in moderate condition, then it's a very good sign for the economy. But when the inflation is a very tightly imposed and when it is rising day by day, then it's a very bad sign for any economy, and it has a very negatively impact on any economy. So in that sense, we have both positive impact also and negative impact also. So when it comes to the moderate inflation, it is a positive, and when it comes to the tight inflation, it is negative. So when there is a positive kind of inflation or moderate inflation, what will have this kind of positivity? So we'll have a increase in investment, encouragement of purchasing power, will have a better look for the quality of any product, reducing debt burden, So these are the positive signs for any economy when there's a moderate inflation. Coming to the tight inflation, that what negative impacts we have, then maybe we have a huge debt burden, loss of purchasing power, instability and inefficiency of any economy. So these are the negative impacts we have. So we already had discussed this question very well. And then coming to the conclusion, so in conclusion you can write that RBI is taking very good stance with the changing of the economy, and with its stance it is looking for the marginalized section of any community or of any economy, because India is a developing country whose most of its population are not much efficient and much affluent. So it is taking stance accordingly. So in that way we can say that we are satisfied with our RBI's monetary policy, and government of India had to also work accordingly, and they had to also design policy accordingly, that in what senses the inflation will lower down and how we can maintain our market economy. So that's it for today's lecture. I hope you like this lecture. If you have any question related to this lecture, kindly ask in the comment section. And PDF of this lecture is available on Telegram in news section, so kindly avail from there. Thank you.